is going to be our guest speaker. And she's, as I said in the email, for some of you that are new, you haven't received the email yet, but I did remember that I'm going to put in the chat that you need to, I'm going to put my assistant's email in the chat if you want to get on the email list for these calls. Okay, just tell her that you, it's one thing to have the Zoom link. If you have the Zoom link, you can jump on, but if you're on the email list, you get all the recordings and you get all the information on a weekly basis. So, Amanda, good to see you again. Hope you're doing good. So I want to get started. I am recording and talk a little bit first about, I met this lady 4 years ago, a little over 4 years ago, probably 4 years and 2 months ago for the first time. She may not remember that, but I do, because she made an immediate impression on me. One of the reasons why you guys are going to think this is silly, but she married an older man, as exactly as my wife has done. My wife married an older man. So so that was one thing, but the way she treated him and loved him was something also impressive. But then I started hearing from other people about her life, her lifestyle. Let me mute everyone really quickly because there we go. Mute all. There we go. There. And I started hearing about things. And since then, we've become very close friends. She's even closer friends with my wife. And it's just been amazing to see what she has gone through. And if you remember some of our last talks at the end of last year, we talked about how things that happen in your life happen for you, not to you. They're kind of on the way to where you're going. They're not in the way of where you're going. And that is a very important factor for me, because that one little lesson there has played such an important role in my life, and I know it has for Marguerite. So I'm going to introduce you all to Marguerite Crespillo, who has the fake living room EXP Realty background.
My office is a disaster.
And she has that lovely hat. So Marguerite, why don't you start off by telling everybody your story, and feel free to ramble. You can talk all you want, and I don't mind interrupting you and asking you specific questions. So.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me today. You know, Rick and Casey are two of my favorite people on the planet, and we seem to have similar paths in relationships and others. And if you've ever met my husband, him and Rick, I think, are like soul brothers from somewhere. I don't know, but they're both love to dress pretty flamboyantly and wildly. Always
Yes.
dressed to the nines, which is, you know, I laugh. I tell my husband that before I met him, I always wanted to be with a man who looked great in Levi's and great in a tux and was willing to wear both. And that's what I got in him, because he loves to dress up. And, you know, so I love. Sometimes it's a little wild, you know, and I gotta have to laugh, but otherwise they're great. Um, I've been in real estate for 27 years. I've been with my husband now going on 35 years. I met him when I was 22. So I met him when I was young and probably much more influential than I might be now. Influenceable, not influential. Influenceable is a better word. But I've been in real estate for 27 years, and I have to say it has been a game changer for me in a million ways. I mean, I got into real estate when I was 30 years old. I had no formal education. I did have a PhD, a public high school diploma. And other than that, I got fired from more jobs than I was hired from. And I'm not employable. And so I laugh because my 24-year-old son, who is struggling with different jobs and, you know, trying to figure out what he wants to be when he grows up. And he's frustrated that he hasn't like got life figured out at 24, right? And I laugh. I'm like, well, I'm 57 and I don't even have life, you know, figured out. And at 24, I was far from that. So I've been very blessed to be in real estate all these years. I've I've had every version of success and failure you could possibly imagine. I've done huge numbers, being, number 7 in California and 66 in the country. And I've ran a brokerage for 22 years and had 120 agents. And then I did the opposite of all that, right? Shut down our brokerage and lost a bazillion dollars. And well, probably not actually a bazillion, but it sure felt like it. And screwed up a lot, made a lot of mistakes, done a lot of stupid stuff. And, over this last summer, we all at the beginning of January probably had big goals and big plans, right? And then March came along. And I remember March 13th and everything shutting down and having a little panic attack for a moment, thinking, oh my God, we're going through this again. Like, I went through the major market crashes and all that. And I just really had no plan, no idea what to do. I just thought I just need to hunker down and take care of my family. And so I thought then I had it all figured out, right? So January I had it figured out. March I made a plan. I got the loans I needed to get. I paid off my debt. I did all that and thought I had it all figured out. And then the first week of June, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And I was like, what the heck? What? Like, what more, can I go through? And, people always say that, well, God only gives you what you can handle. And I'm like, well, clearly he did not pay attention to me today because something got stacked on that I was not prepared for. And, I had a really great conversation with Casey early on, and she changed the word in it for me. Instead of it being this health crisis or health challenge, she said, what if you looked at it as a health opportunity? And obviously in the moment I was like, what? You're nuts. I don't know what the hell, and then I really started thinking about it that way and started looking at it. And I read a great book called Radical Remission as well. So if you have anybody in your life who has cancer or has dealt with cancer, it's a fantastic book. And I bring this up kind of briefly because in that book, obviously when you get diagnosed with any kind of cancer, any kind of life-threatening challenge, you start thinking of all the worst stuff, right? Like, who's going to take care of my family? And, my husband is retired. My husband has Parkinson's disease. My kids are grown for the most part, but I thought, who's going to take care of all of this, if something were to happen to me? And luckily I am with a company, EXP, where I was able to earn revenue share during that time and earn large amounts of stock. And so financially we were okay, but emotionally we struggled. And in this book, in Radical Remission, this gal interviewed over 1,000 cancer survivors, cancer people who had gone into remission and been in it for a long time. And she was like, what is the difference between these people who survive it and these people who don't? And it was people at all different levels of cancer, right? From early stages to advanced cancer. And what she found is that they all had a ton of things that they all did, but there were 9 things that they all did. And a few of those, I can never remember all of them, but a couple of them were, number 1, having a strong reason to live. That's a big one, right? Number 2, having some sort of spiritual connection, like relating or connecting somehow to your spiritual side. Radically changing your diet. I lost the day before I was diagnosed cancer. I thought I would eat whatever I want, and I was struggling with losing weight. The day after I was diagnosed with cancer, my diet immediately changed. I lost almost 50 pounds and, got back to exercising, doing all the things that you should be doing anyway, but you choose not to do. And so, I think about this a lot, is that why do we not do what we should do until we're forced to, and many times, until your back is up against the wall, until you are in a corner and you feel, even though you have choices, you feel in your head like you don't have any choices. Why is that? And I don't really understand all the psychology of the human mind in a lot of ways, but I do know that timing and circumstances change everything. So every time you may have ever said, I absolutely am not doing that, or you talk to somebody who says, I'm absolutely not going to do that, And then the next day you see they did it and you're like, well, what changed? And the only thing that changed literally was the way that we look at things, the perspective, right? And so when Casey helped me look at this more as a health opportunity, as opposed to a health challenge, or a health crisis, I started looking at what can I do with this that has shown up in my life. This has shown up, like Rick said, first things out of his words today. This showed up for me, right? It showed up for me so that I could really look at where were the changes that I needed to make. What was it going to take for me to do what I needed to do? Sadly, for years before I was diagnosed with this cancer, I knew something was going on. I knew in my head that something wasn't right, that I needed to make some changes, that I had to get some stuff figured out, and I did nothing. I literally did nothing. And so my goal now is to not wait so long, right? Like God or whatever you believe, like taps on your head, right? He goes tick, 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 tick. Hello, hello, kind of whispers quietly, hey, something's going on. And we have the choice. We can either listen, or we go, oh, I'll get to that later. Oh, I'm busy. I got stuff going on. Oh, that's not important right now. And eventually he knocks a little louder, a little louder, a little louder. And then all of a sudden one day he goes, bam, and he throws a big old brick in your face. You're like, whoa, wait a minute. What was that all about? He says, well, clearly you don't listen when I'm whispering. So you're going to listen now, right? And I just think that that's a great lesson and a metaphor for life is I'm working hard to listen to the whispers instead of waiting for the brick in my face.
Nice. Can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
I love that. I know that I can recall that Casey was on the phone with you because she came to tell me afterwards. And um, I want you to do a couple of things today, if you would. I mean, you're my guest speaker and I shouldn't be telling you what to do, but I know that you had huge emotional crap happen to you long before that happened in your life, excuse me. And one of the things that probably happened in that occasion, and I'm not going to talk about it. If you want to, I prefer you do. And if you don't want to, it's fine. But it really makes very clear how small the things that have taken up so much of our time and our worry become when you get hit with the brick in the face that you talked about, right? I mean, think about all the things you used to worry about, Marguerite, that you don't worry about anymore because the brick was so much bigger than all that little crap you used to worry about, right? Or if you're open to sharing what's happened long before for you, where you definitely had emotional setbacks and were devastated in many ways, I'd love for you to, because you have overcome your whole life. And then when I see you on stage, like, guys, she's not even talking about real estate yet. This woman has taught thousands of agents how to be better with their database and how to build a referral business. And she's a coach on a regular basis. She's just incredible. And you're probably hearing that just in her story. But go ahead, Marguerite. Don't let me derail you.
So I'm not, I'm assuming you're talking about my son. Is that what you wanted me to talk about?
Well, if you want to, yes, I
Yeah,
think
I have no problem.
because this isn't the first time in your life you've been hit with a brick, is what I'm saying. So
no. And
yeah.
the thing is that what I do want to say is, and I'm not trivializing at all what I'm about to say, but we all have stuff, right? We all go through things in life, and no matter where you are at in life, you could be at the very top of success and doing everything right and doing everything amazing, trying to remove every mistake. And we all get humbled. We all get humbled at some point in our life. And we all are forced to take a step back and really reevaluate what's important to us, and what is most important about those lessons is what you learn from them and how you look at them. So what Rick is talking about is my husband Joe and I, as I mentioned, we were 22. I was 22. He was 33. He had been married before and had 3 children from his first wife, and we had a son together named Jordan. And Jordan, when he was about 5 years old, went into a coma, and we did not know exactly what was going on. We rushed him to the hospital. They ran all kinds of tests. They asked us all kinds of questions. Did he get into poison? Did he, hit his head? Did he? None of those things were figured out. And finally, they brought in a doctor who was going to operate on him. And the doctor asked, how come he was so dark complected? And I said, well, I'm confused why you would ask that. My husband is Spanish. I'm half Italian. He's dark skinned. And he said, well, the color of his skin does not look correct. I think that this is Addison's disease. And we were confused because he was our only child. So we didn't really have anything to compare. He just looked like he had a great tan, right? And so he had what was called Addison's disease. Well, my father also had the same disease and died when I was 10 years old. So I go, well, this must be genetic. And they go, no, it's not genetic. I said, well, that doesn't make any sense. My dad has the same disease. He died. My son has the same disease. Well, this was back in the 90s. And at that time, we didn't have Google and the internet and all that kind of stuff. So I went to the library and did a bunch of research and read about a disease called adrenoleukodystrophy. If any of you ever saw the movie Lorenzo's Oil, my son had the same disease as the boy in that movie. Well, he was a normal, healthy little boy. When he was about 8 years old, he started to have additional symptoms. We had literally just opened our brokerage. This was May of 1997, had just moved into an office. And a month later, we had to pack up everything we had, including our two younger children. We now had a 1-year-old and a 2-year-old. Had a thriving real estate business, had to walk away from it all and go live in Minnesota for 6 months while my son had a bone marrow transplant. The bone marrow transplant supposedly effectively took. However, 2 years later, our son passed away in June of 1999. During that same time, sorry, I was okay for a minute, hang on. Shortly before that, my husband, Joe, was a Western Regional Vice President for First Union Bank. And this was back when all the banks were starting to merge and come together. He had a really good job, paid well, benefits, the whole bit, and he was laid off. He was one of the top 20% of upper management who was laid off during the bank mergers. So our son dies, my husband loses his job. We're trying to rebuild a real estate company after having had to walk away from it. And I just had to go to work, right? So everybody grieves in different ways. Joe stayed home with the boys. I went to work. I went to work working 100 hours a week, running 1,000,000 miles a minute, anything I could do to not be at home, right? Where I had to deal with all of the stuff. And I remember coming home one day at 9 o'clock at night and had been working all day and coming through the door, and my kids are there crying, mom, mom, mom. And Joe is standing behind them. I'm like, you're one more thing for me to do, And I remember talking to Joe and saying, look, things are not going well. I think we need to make some decisions. We need to either go to an attorney or a counselor, but we're going to need to make a decision by the end of the day. Well, luckily, my husband is a smart man. He made an appointment with a counselor. We went to the therapist. I remember the first time at the therapist session, they're like, why are you here? And he said, because she made me. And I'm like, wrong answer. Right? And so we go to the second appointment and they talk about your family background real quickly. And my husband comes, he's from an old world Spanish family. His parents were immigrants here from Spain. I came from a very dysfunctional, my mom was married 4 times and, hot mess. So we come from these very different backgrounds. And the third appointment we go to, and you go separately, and the therapist says, so, are you done, or are you willing to work on this relationship? And I'm like, well, he's willing to, I'm willing to. So he said, I'd like you to make a list of the things that you love about him. I'm like, oh no, I don't think I could do that right now. I don't like nothing about him right now. I've already done that pros and cons list, and the cons outweigh the pros, right? And he goes, no, you can leave the cons list alone. And he goes, and you strike me as somebody who's a little bit competitive. So are you willing to give me a number of the things that you love about him? I said, well, I can't think of one right now, but you know what? I'll make a big goal and I'll make it 100. He goes, okay. So I leave, and it takes me about 3 or 4 days. I can't think of nothing. Finally, one day I wake up and I look over and my husband had made me tea, and he makes me tea every morning and puts it next to my bed, whether he likes me or not, whether I'm nice to him or not. And I said, okay, I love that about him, right? And I started to make this list. And I won't lie, I only get to 45 on the list, but I gave him that list for our anniversary, and that saved our relationship. I'll tell you that Joe did nothing to change anything. And I don't say that in a mean way. I say that because the only thing that changed was my perspective, my view of him, and all the things I loved about him. You know, when you first fall in love with somebody, everything they do is amazing, right? My husband is a stand-up comedian, so he says, yeah, in the beginning everything you say is a joke and you're so funny all the time. Now everything's a damn joke. and, so, and so that really saved our relationship, and I'm incredibly blessed to be here with him 35 years later. And I will tell you that just like we started this conversation, the only thing that really changed was perspective. Just like Casey told me in the beginning, was perspective. And so wherever you're at in your business and your life, you have the power and the ability to change it on a dime, to literally change the way you look at it, to change how you deal with it and how you handle it. You know, I see people, we all have loss. We've all lost people in our life. You know, losing a child is truly a difficult thing. I won't lie. But what I learned at one point was to focus on the life that he lived and the impact that he made to every single person around him in his 10 short years on earth. He only needed 10. Some of us need 50, 60, 70, 100. He only needed 10 to make an impact. Or we can focus on the death and how difficult that loss is. And so, you know, we lose people in our life, and how we focus on that makes all the difference in where you're at and what you are doing with your life. So I'm not sure what else you wanted me to talk about, Rick. There you go.
Well, I don't know. I don't have any dry eyes. I'm sure there's not a lot of dry eyes here, but it's the main thing is that, Marguerite, I love that you talked about perspective, because that's what I'm working on every day, is how could I look at this differently, right? I mean, one of the oldest motivational sayings is, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And I used to hear that so much back in my KW days, many, many years ago. And I literally got sick of it. I got like, okay, enough, shut up and get out of my face. And it is still the challenge of the day. I was telling somebody the other day that was interviewing me, they go, well, how do you start each day? And I said, I start each day when I put my feet on the ground by thanking God for another day. And then I say, I have to work on me. And the way I work on me is, after 40 years of selling real estate, I want to see if I can remain hungry, humble, smart, and coachable through each day. And not one or two of those words, but all four. And with you, Marguerite, one of the things that I admire about you from a distance, I mean, I can tell everybody here, we don't talk that often. We bump into each other on Zoom calls and things, but you know, I'm over here holding you very high up on a pedestal because I admire and respect you so much for how you've persevered through adversity, right? I mean, I can remember when Joe's Parkinson's got worse, right? And I was wondering, did his hairy chest make the 45 things that you love about him? I'm just curious. So
yes, that and his hairy back, right?
okay, good. So yeah, and I think it's important that, you know, you're still operating a business, Marguerite, through all of this, right? You're managing people, you're selling houses, you're doing a lot of different things still right now while we speak. Is that true?
Yes, that's true.
Yeah. And you're again persisting through adversity. So when you know, I think everybody's probably learned a significant lesson already today. Would you mind transitioning a little bit and talking about, because you coach so many people, you know, it's the beginning of the year and people are having fights in their head about resolutions versus goals, and you know, all of these different things. And I think it's all semantics. I think, you know, really people, need a day of the year where they can say, hey, I can erase the past and start all over again. And I like to be able to do that every single morning, not on January 1st, but every morning I want to say I can erase the past and start all over. And technically we could do it every hour, every half hour, every 10 minutes, but we don't. So maybe, spread some of your brilliance with us on, getting us back to work. And, I'm noticing that right now when I reach out to people, they're so much more willing to talk, whether it was an old lead that kind of died on the vine, or whether it's a friend that I'm just checking in to say, how are you doing with this new uptick, or, this new staying at home again? Tell us, what do you think?
I think that, well, I'll tell you one of my favorite books, and it's a very short, simple book. It could literally be a total of 3 words, and it's called Do the Work by Stephen Pressfield.
Oh, never heard of it.
It's fantastic. He wrote another book too called The War of Art. Both great books by Stephen Pressfield. They're short, easy to read, amazing books. And it's funny because yesterday I was on a call with your wife again. And
you too.
And what's funny is we did this whole thing about attachments, right? And we talked about, and so, how quickly we can be to self-judge, and how quickly we can go to burying our head in the sand. And it's even easier right now because we're also virtual, right? Like we're not all in the same room where you can just walk up and hug somebody, or, say hi, or feel their energy. And we can get really caught up in all the stuff that we're not doing, or what we haven't accomplished, or what we haven't done. And yesterday, I had to get a smack in the face, a little, not literally, but from Casey, who's like, wait a minute, I can't believe you're talking about these things that you haven't done, when look what you have done. And so if you do nothing today, stop for a moment and, number one, be grateful. Make a list of the things you have accomplished, but more than anything, just pick up the phone. Like, just make it a goal to make 5, 10, 20 outbound calls, outbound calls. Call anybody. It doesn't have to be, I'm calling to see if you're interested in buying or selling real estate. It can be, hey, how are you? What's new in your life? What's going on? Right? Those phone calls that you are supposed to be making anyway, that you're not making. And if you accomplish nothing, make phone calls. Get on coaching calls like this. Do the work. Be active. Be engaging. Because what I do know is when you sit home in your pajamas and you don't get dressed all day, or don't shower for 2 or 3 days, which we're all doing right now, right? Yesterday I was like, did I shower yesterday? I don't remember, right? Like, if you're not doing these things, if you just engage and you just move, all it takes is to move, get up, do something, do anything, right? The action of the activity of action is a game changer, and it will change your perspective. It will change what you do. It will change everything, because rarely do you pick up the phone and call and say, hey, how are you doing today? And they're like, I don't want to talk to you, and hang up the phone. Like, I mean, does anyone have that happen? Like, if you do, you're like, all right, you move on, right? They must be having a bad day. But we've all, talked about setting these big, huge goals, and I agree, goals are important, but whatever goals you set in on March 12th last year, all of a sudden changed on March 13th. So you had to reevaluate and relook at that, and take a few minutes every day and just put a little tiny bit of action, a little tiny bit of activity, whatever it is you want to accomplish. Like, I have been wanting to remodel my house for 27 years. It's been on my goal list for 27 years. It is happening Monday. Monday, it's happening. I know. I could not be more excited. I mean, when the guy comes out with the sledgehammer, I'm like, let me start, right? Like, I cannot wait. But it's been on my goal list for a long time. Finally, I had to sit down and say, okay, what are the action steps it's actually going to take? I had to get the plans drawn. I had to come up with a design. I had to get bids, but I had to take that action, right? It didn't just miraculously happen because I put it on my list. It required action. And many of those action steps, I didn't even realize were taking me to the place that they were taking me to. So my advice out of anything is just get up. Get up and move. Get up and move 10 feet. Get in the shower, right? Put your makeup on, even if you have nowhere to go today. Like I had to actually get up and get dressed and like put makeup and like clothes on today because I had a call with Rick at 9. I'm like, I better put some makeup on. And so, just the action of action can change everything. And I've seen people just bury their head in the sand and stay home for days and days on end. Well, I can't do anything anyway. Well, yes, you can. Now's the perfect time to write that book you've dreamed about. Now's the perfect time to clean out those closets. I mean, talk about having to clean out. I'm doing a remodel. I had to literally 27 years of crap I've had to move. So, what are the little things? I can tell you that there's been huge healing for me in literally cleaning out my house, literally going to closets and dumping everything out of the closet and cleaning it out, like cleaning out all those cobwebs and all that clutter. And there's something healing and cathartic about that. I mean, something amazing about getting all that junk out of the way. I mean, I know it's physical stuff in the house, but it seems to be cleaning out my soul too, right? So what are action steps that you can do today in the next hour? Like literally get off this phone call and get up and move and do something, anything. And you will accomplish way more than you ever expected to. Rick?
That was brilliant. Brilliant. And what it made me think of is something that I've shared on this group before. So I'm going to share my screen really quickly and bring it up. Let's see, where is it on my screen? Hold on. Let's see. Oh, I see where it is. Okay. All right, let me share this. And I have shared this probably not too long ago, but this is a quote, Marguerite, from William Murray. And it always talks about, see the words right here, begin it. And that's what you're talking about. Just begin something, start. And this is one of my favorite quotes of all time. And when I first started dating Casey, she had this quote on her refrigerator. And it says, until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness concerning all acts of initiative and creation. Notice initiative and creation, meaning initiative is those projects and all of those things. And creation, there is one elementary truth, and the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans, that the moment one definitely commits, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance, which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. I have learned a deep respect for one of Goethe's couplets, whatever you can do or dream, you can begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. So I can actually put that, I'll put that link in the chat. And that way, if you guys want to look that up, but it is a very famous quote. I think it's used in, hundreds of thousands of times each year. So, but the quote is in the chat. Marguerite, I can't tell you how much I appreciate you doing it. I kind of put her on the spot, guys. If you weren't there on December 18th called, I said, Marguerite, how'd you like to be my guest speaker on the first call of the year on January 8th? So she really couldn't say no.
I don't mind at all.
I think it's important, Marguerite, for you to know, because I've seen you in all your ways since I met you only 4 years. Is it just me, or do you feel like you and I and Joe and Casey have known each other for like 20 years?
I know when you said it's only 4 years, I had to think for a minute. I'm like, it's been longer than that. It certainly feels like it's been longer than that in a million ways. Yes.
Yeah. I met you in November of 2016.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember.
Yeah. So, but the reason I say that is that you, as I've seen this, I'm over here, we don't talk that much, but I just highly admire and respect you. And I have seen through your conversations who you admire and respect, and how you emulate people to be a better version of you. Now, the reason I brought that up for everybody here is I wanted to make a comment about that, because I had a conversation with a group of lenders yesterday or Wednesday, and loan officers. About 40 loan officers were on a Zoom meeting with me, and the thing that we talked about is have you ever admired and put somebody up on a pedestal? So Marguerite, since you're the guest speaker today, tell me, out there in the world, it has to be a real human being. It can't be like a superhero that's fake, but anybody that's lived or died, who is somebody that you really admire and respect and put on a pedestal, if you will?
And this is going to sound like it was planned, but honestly, I would say that you and Casey are on the top of that list. A lot of what you guys have said and done have been incredibly impactful in my life. But there's a lot of, I don't know.
Well, could you do somebody maybe besides me and Casey real quick, just for the, like in your whole life, because you only known me 4 years. I'm sure there was somebody you admired and respected before that.
And what's funny is I would say that when I'm going to say my mom, who passed away in 2009.
Okay.
But if you had asked me years ago, she would not have been on my list. But I think that as you get older and you have more life experience, you start to understand why people made the decisions that they made and why they do what they do.
Yeah.
That you didn't understand at the time, right?
Very good.
And I think that, as I mentioned earlier, my mom was married a bunch of times and, made a lot of poor decisions in life. But there were a lot of really good decisions she made that she didn't even realize were decisions. And I say that because I think that many times we beat ourselves up about the things that we do, especially when it comes to our children.
Yeah.
And we don't realize how those things have impacted or helped them. A simple example is my mom loved to play Scrabble, right? And she loved to read. And she would never let us win at Scrabble. Still a nemesis to me today, right? Never let us win at Scrabble. And I think about that, and I think that she blessed me with an incredible vocabulary, and she blessed me with the desire to read, because I would literally go read the dictionary so that I could find words to beat my mom at Scrabble. we had this big old dictionary, and I would read this big, huge Webster's dictionary. I'm like, I got to find words that I can figure out, right? And that desire and drive to do something different. But I would also say, two other people are, I, whatever you believe or think, I love Oprah and all that she has done for the world. I think she's been incredibly impactful in a million ways. I love her story. And I also love Don Miguel Ruiz, who wrote the book, The Four Agreements, because that book has probably been one of the most impactful in my life. God, there's so many.
Well, those are great examples. Of course, your husband. Yeah. But those are great examples. But the reason I wanted to bring that up, Marguerite, and your mom was a really good example, because I'm sure there were times where she was not on any pedestal for you. Right. And what I wanted to remind all of us is we spend a lot of time agonizing over things that we have absolutely no control over. We spend a lot of times comparing ourselves to other. We spend a lot of time being mad about something did, that them doing or saying that you absolutely had no control over. All you had control over was how you reacted to it. There's a million things that go through my mind as we start the year off. I have people tell me, Casey, for one of them, saying, well, it's good that you're really a mindset speaker, Rick. You do a lot of that, but people also need to hear how to move forward, how to take action, how to make more money in their business. And I said, well, I'm a coach. At the end of the day, that's what I do. I show people how to sell more real estate. But what brought that up, Marguerite, is that folks, if somebody has a trait that you admire and respect and you put them on a pedestal, guess what? You're putting yourself on a pedestal. There is no way in the world that someone has a trait that you admire and respect that you could even see that trait. You would not even be able to see it or recognize it as a trait unless you also had that same trait. Unless you also had those same ways of being and that way of changing something for others. It's the same when you're pissed off at someone, or when you say you are so arrogant or you are so whatever to someone and you mean it. You would not be able to pick out the trait of arrogance or whatever it is you're yelling at somebody unless you had it. And when people are really, really mad, it's because they're mad about the reflection. They're mad about that person that I'm just angry at is a reflection of something I have in me that I don't like. And my wife reminds me of that same Casey that just shows Marguerite different perspective, that, you know, when I'm being impatient with another agent on the phone, it's because they are a reflection of some of the issues that I still work on as an agent after 40 plus years. So what I want to tell you is think about all the people you admire and start paying attention to the traits that they have, because if you admire them, you have those same traits. So allow people to see those. And if you're pissed off at someone or mad, then let's start the year picking up on those things, and then not being a victim to those traits that anger us in other people.
Well,
Because
everything
remember,
we do is a mirror, right, Rick?
absolutely, very well said. Yeah. So, Marguerite, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. We have another guest speaker next week, and he is going to be coming to us from Arizona. And I hope you'll all join us. He's really a great, great guy, and he has some amazing things to say. Marguerite, I got to tell you, I want to make sure that this recording gets out quickly for others to use. I hope that when I send it to you, Marguerite, that you will also post it in many
Absolutely.
places, because I really want people to hear your story, because in itself, just the way you have treated people and acted through life has changed the lives of many. And I know you will continue to do more of that. So God bless you. And
Let me
thank
just
you.
say that I could not be more honored to not only be here today, but to have you as a friend, Rick. I mean, you always make me smile and make me laugh. And just like my husband, you guys crack me up. And there's no greater joy. I know that if the phone ever rings and it's you on the other end, that I'm going to smile and laugh and be happy, or if I see you someplace. So I'm so blessed to consider you guys really truly great friends, and I'm honored to be here today, and thank you all for listening.
All right. So ladies and gentlemen, remember, I'm not using it this week because I'm here near the beach and don't have it, but the book, Og Mandito's book, The Greatest Salesman in the World, we're in month 1. So we will be going through scroll number 1 in the book, The Greatest Salesman in the World. So if you got out of the Gina's email address out of the chat, if you are not on the email list or know someone that wants to be, just email Gina and she will get you on the email list for the free Friday coaching call. All right. Meanwhile, go out and make it a great week. And I hope you'll follow Marguerite's advice, hang up from this call, and do something that moves you forward. Take care, guys. Bye-bye.
Thank you.